Welcome to the Digital Forge podcast, where we explore how technology, innovation, and people are reshaping industry and the future of this region. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Ashley Tate, one of Sheffield's most interesting and brilliant entrepreneurs. Ashley grew up here in the city, left school early, and by 19 had already founded his first company, Fit Property. A few years later, he built Split the Bills, scaling it over more than a decade into a national platform used by thousands of students and households. Since then, he's founded companies in energy and EV charging, including Mina, where he served as CEO. Ashley has now stepped into a new chapter. He's co-chair of Sheffield Angels, backing early-stage founders and helping build an investment culture the region has lacked for far too long. We will talk about his early life, his entrepreneurial drive, what shaped him as a young man, the wins and failures, the journey through multiple industries, his approach to raising capital, and the work he's doing to support founders. Before we begin, please do follow the Digital Forge on Spotify or Apple Podcasts so you never miss an episode. Ashley, welcome.
Thanks, David. Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you're from Sheffield originally. You grew up here.
Yes. Yeah.
Where did you grow up and household and
grew up in Dronfield. So I don't know where that class is Sheffield. I think technically it's Derbyshire, but close enough. Yeah, not travelled too far.
I was born in Sheffield, but I grew up like you in Dronfield. I went to St Andrew's School back in the day.
Oh right, okay, yeah.
I did not know you were from Dronfield.
I'm from Dronfield. Yeah. I went to Fanshawe, the secondary school, and then I think as soon as I left, when I left home, I moved to Sheffield, and that's where I've been ever since.
So, what did your parents do? Were they entrepreneurs? Were they?
Yeah, well, I suppose that's probably where most of my inspiration comes from. So, parents separated when I was really young. Never remember them being together, but lived very close together. And I guess on mum's side of the family, my granddad and then my uncle ran a fruit shop. Still exists on Aberdale Road in Sheffield.
Oh, really?
Shops of Sheffield.
Yeah.
So, while it's not huge business, that we imagine today, it's family business. Get up at 3 a.m. and collect the fruit from the market, all that kind of stuff. And then on my dad's side, and my dad used to run, I don't know how to even explain what they were, but I guess retail shops selling bedding. I mean, he always used to say to me, and I remember this from being really very young, like, they don't make any money. And I used to think, well, this is a bit of a strange thing to do, but, runs his own business. And then he's got involved in all sorts of stuff ever since then. He's always worked for himself, been a bit of an entrepreneur. And I just remember from being a really young age, I don't even know what age, but well before I left school, when people used to say to me, what do you want to do? I used to say, I just want to work for myself. I want to run my own business. That was kind of what I had in my head. But I had no idea doing what. I had no intention of staying on after I was 16. I couldn't wait to leave school. Not because I had anything specific I wanted to do, just because I didn't want to be at school.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think if you come from a family where there's that work ethic and you just take it for granted, you just think that's how the world works. Did you used to go to work in the fruit shop and in your dad's retail shops and things?
I used to go to work with my dad. I remember that. I used to look forward to I don't know how old I was at this point, but I was still at school. I used to look forward to the school holidays because I could go to work with my dad. I used to love going. He used to have a warehouse. I used to love going around the warehouse. I'm sure I wasn't being very helpful, but I used to love just being in that environment. Yeah, it was great.
So what kind of teenager were you? Were you independent? Were you curious? Were you hardworking? Did you enjoy school?
Did I enjoy school? I didn't not enjoy school, but I didn't want to be there any longer than I needed to be. I always remember thinking, I don't understand the point of this. Not that I wasn't very good at it. I think I did my GCSEs. I was very good at maths. There were subjects like history where I just think, just what is the point in this? But I think as soon as I left school, earliest memory of running a business was I left school at 16 or finished my GCSEs, and over the summer holidays, I personally wanted one of these mini bikes, these mini motorbikes. You might remember them, you might not, but they were tiny bikes with little petrol engines. And I looked to buy one. I think they were like 800, 900 quid at the time. So I was thinking, well, I wonder if I can buy these like wholesale. So I got in touch, I did a bit of research, got in touch with a company in Manchester that were importing these bikes. And I said, how many would I have to buy to get a discount? And I remember the guy put me on hold. And he hadn't put me on hold because he'd obviously just covered the phone or something. And he must have shouted to his colleague. He's like, I've got a kid on the phone that wants to buy 10 bikes. And anyway, long story short, I think for 10 bikes, I got like a 20% discount. So I was thinking, great, I'll buy these bikes and I'll sell them to my friends that want them. So my dad lent me the money. We drove over to Manchester, picked up these bikes, and I sold them to some of my friends. And it was my dad that actually said to me, I wonder how many of these we'd have to buy to get like significant discount. Anyway, long story short, from the start of the summer holidays, which was probably July, up until Christmas, Dad lent me some money. We imported 2 containers of these mini bikes. I'd got a card machine in my bedroom and a landline at the time, separate landline. I'd put a couple of adverts in the Bike Trader, and I put these things on eBay. And sold about 800 of these little bikes just from people ringing up, me processing the credit card, and I was sending them out UPS. I got self-storage unit full of these bikes. I'd pick them up every morning with my dad, bring them back. We'd mail them out. So that was kind of my first experience of business.
What year was that?
Well, I was 16, or I'd turning 16. So hang on, this will have been like probably around when the financial crash happened. To be honest, 2008, 2009.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's, you see, I love stories like that. So school doesn't teach that, does it?
Absolutely not. No, it doesn't teach you that. And it doesn't teach you that, as well as all the success, people, and then after Christmas, it was just a disaster. Because this was like the Christmas craze. So clearly everyone was buying them for Christmas. And then after Christmas, they were like tiny little bikes made in China with petrol engines. Like, it was just a recipe for disaster. Like, they didn't work, they didn't start, people crashed them, and we were just like, you just didn't want your phone in your bedroom to ring, so you either unplugged it or answered the phone and, gave them the money back. So, what seemed like a great money-making idea turned out not to be such a good money-making idea, but, probably gave back 50% of all the money I'd made in refunds, and we couldn't send these bikes back. We weren't going to ship them across the sea, but yeah, it's a great lesson in just business.
So were you still at school then when you were doing that, or had you just left school when you were doing the bike thing?
I just finished, so I'd done my GCSEs. My mum wanted me to go back and do A levels. I didn't want to go back and do A levels. I got no intention of doing that. I'd done this bike thing. It finished at Christmas. Basically, there was every man and his dog had jumped on the bandwagon by then. And then I didn't really know what to do. And I didn't really know what to do, but I thought, I want to open a restaurant. I have no idea why I want to open a restaurant. Like, no experience of cooking, wasn't really interested in cooking. So I did 2 things. I went to Sheffield College to do a catering course. I'll come back to that in a minute. And secondly, I thought, right, I best go and work somewhere that's good. Like, where's a good place to go and work? In hindsight, this wasn't a good place to work, but I went to work at Subway. Obviously not a restaurant, but actually in Orchard Square, just up the road.
Seriously?
Yeah. So I was there. Loved it. I thought it was great. And while I didn't necessarily enjoy the job, it was an amazing lesson in business, because Subway is a sandwich shop, but they've got their processes down to a T.
Yeah.
Like, you can see now from the outside, being on the inside, why that's such a franchisable model.
Yeah.
So went to catering college, decided after 3 weeks that I didn't want to have any interest in being in catering, so quit college. And then I got a bit lost, really. I bounced from like Subway to, I went to TGI Fridays. I spent a lot of time there. I did Frankie and Benny's. I went to work at Pret in Manchester because I was like, well, that's a successful brand. I'll go and work there. And that lasted till I was about 20. So there was, probably 4 years where I was just, I thought, oh, this is my career now. I'm going to be the manager of a restaurant. I've got no... And I definitely lost my way a bit. Anyway, tell me if I'm waffling here.
No,
but
not at all.
I'm just telling.
No,
telling the story.
This is great. No, this is great.
Anyway, long story short, when I got to about 20, I thought, right, I've got to do something else. I can't. This is definitely not where I want to be for the rest of my life. And my dad at the time had a few student properties that he was renting out. And the way you rented student properties then was mostly put a handwritten sign in the window, wait for students to ring you and, try and let the room. But this was when Facebook and early days of social media was taking off. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I could help my dad advertise his properties on Facebook, and even Gumtree was a big thing back then. So that's exactly what I did. So took some pictures. This was before iPhones, so this was like digital camera, upload it onto your laptop, and then put it on the internet. And then word kind of got around that I was doing this for my dad, and other landlords wanted to get involved. So I thought, oh great, I'll start. I guess I'll start Rightmove, as people know it now, for student accommodation. And I got the domain ULET students, ULET students. But the biggest problem was nobody had the hardware, or there wasn't the ability for anyone to do it themselves. So it became, what was that? I guess people just couldn't do it. So what happened was they'd say to me, will you take the pictures? Will you upload them? Will you write the descriptions? It's not really what I wanted to do, but I started doing it. And then I remember one guy said to me, oh, will you do the viewings? I was like, okay, I'll do the viewings. And then I've just evolved into essentially a property management company. So what I thought, maybe I was too early, right? If it was 5 years later, maybe we could have created the next Rightmove for student accommodation. But it was just too early. So I ended up building a letting agency purely focused on student accommodation.
But you're 19 years old.
Yeah, and I guess there just wasn't the red tape back then, right?
Yeah.
There's no way you could have done what I did then now. We were taking cash deposits. When I say we, I'd take cash deposits and I'd literally stick them in a drawer in my bedroom. There was no deposit protection scheme. There was no, it was almost this luck involved in like, oh, I'll just dip into that because we need some money to pay the business. And, if we did that now, I'd probably be arrested, to be honest. I don't know, but it just would not be allowed. But somehow grew the business and employed the first person I employed was just a friend, Sophie. I remember saying to her, what are you doing? I'm not doing anything. Do you want to work for me? Seemed like somebody that was hardworking enough to roll the sleeves up and get stuck in. I'm going into quite a lot of detail here, but it just evolved. There wasn't necessarily a plan. It was just the way to grow a business is to get more customers. So we'll do whatever's needed to get more customers. I didn't enjoy it. We had to ring. There was people put signs up outside the house saying to let, and I'd ring them and say, I've started this business, don't have an office. I'm like 20 years old. Do you want to let your property? And actually, I think being young and a bit naive and a bit innocent was a massive advantage because people are actually more friendly than you think, and they give you an opportunity, they give you a chance.
I think this is absolutely fascinating. So what started out as I'm going to help my dad because he's just using handwritten pieces of paper and sticking them in windows to going to what was a full-blown internet-based letting agency is incredible. But what I love about it is the simplicity, because we're going to talk about this later, I suspect, because business is usually about having a product and selling it to customers, and people overcomplicate all the time. And even the most sophisticated AI fundamental business based on deep tech, they somehow forget that. Do you think you learned a lot from doing this business? And would you regard it as, I would regard it as a massive success? I presume it was how did it end up? What happened to it?
Yeah, so we grew it. So when did I sold it? In 2021. So it was probably like 15 years, wow. Grew it over 15 years. And I mean, it wasn't multi-million pound business, but we were probably close to turning over we never turned over $1 million, but we were close to turning over $1 million, and it was a good lifestyle business. I took a decent amount of profit out myself.
Yeah,
but I knew it was not what I wanted to do. It was almost got to the point where it was like I wasn't interested anymore. I wasn't involved really in the day to day. There was 10-ish staff working for me at the time. They were running the business, and it was. I got to the point where I was like, right, if I want to do something serious, like I can't have this business, like, because it's just a distraction. So I ended up selling that. But yeah,
who did you sell it to? Was it to another company, to another person?
It was actually to another student letting business that were based in Liverpool. Two guys set up a very similar thing to what I'd done in Liverpool, and they wanted to expand into different cities, and buying another business with a ready-made portfolio was the obvious exit for them, really.
I mean, I won't talk about how much money you made and all that unless you want to, but I think it's be quite interesting for people about the process of selling a business. How did that happen? Did they just ring you up and say, "Do you fancy selling it to us?" Or
no. So I think, well, when you talk about lessons, like, I mean, I feel like the biggest lessons learned throughout Fit Property was just everything that went wrong. Like, every time something goes wrong, you're like, right, I don't want to do that again. Don't want to do that again. And like, no joke. I mean, I laugh now, but like for probably the first 4 or maybe even 5 years, the only way I knew really if we were making money was the cash in the bank. Like, we'd do the accounts like on probably the 11th hour when they needed to be filed at the company's house. But like, we'd get to the year end and just pass the year end. It was like, is there money in the bank? Yeah, there's money in the bank. Right, must be doing something right. It really bit us hard when we weren't making a profit, and that's kind of the first lesson in, like, get your finances in order. Like, just because there's money in the bank doesn't mean you're actually a successful business.
I think all of us, all entrepreneurs, have been in that position where you're not going to be able to make payroll, and I know what that's like. But what's that like?
It's bad, yeah. You're like, well, you're literally like thinking, where the hell am I going to get this extra 500,000? Not 500,000, but £500 or £1,000 just to pay people that are sat in the office, and you're trying to be calm about it because you think, well, I can't say anything to anybody. Yeah, they might all walk up, get up and leave.
It does spook people. You can't. So you, as an entrepreneur, you're holding that inside, and often you can't. There's nobody you can talk to about that. It's a very, very, very lonely place, isn't it? It is. I mean, and as a young person going through that, geez, Louise, that must have been really hard at times.
I think it was hard, but you know what? I actually think I'd probably find it harder now, because I think being young and having almost nothing to lose, I don't know. There's when I think back to some of the times when literally, like, we could have gone bust tomorrow, and maybe I felt it. Maybe I've forgotten how painful it was. I don't know, but I think if that was me now, like, I wouldn't be in a good place. Whereas then it was just like, well, whatever.
Yeah. People often come to me and talk about entrepreneurship, and I want to be, want to be an entrepreneur. What does it take, and all of that. And the thing I hate the most is when people are in a job and they don't want to leave the job, but they kind of want to do this thing on the side. And that always pisses me off, because I think you've got to be all in for the thing that you're going to do. Do you feel, I mean, after what you've been through with Fit Property, did you feel this? Do you feel the same way?
I think if you really want something successful, you've got to be all in. Yeah. But I do sympathise with people who are employed and want to start their own business, because if you've got a mortgage and a family and commitments, like, that's a scary place to be, to just quit your job and go all in on a business. I think by luck or just starting a business when you're young and you've got almost nothing to lose, it just makes it so much easier in some ways, but harder in others. No experience, but
because you're also going along like a swan on the top, but you're pedaling like hell underneath, and everybody says to you, "Oh, it's, Fit Property is going so well," and you're thinking, "Yeah, I need a grand to make payroll to pay these people next week." Yeah, it is tough, isn't it? It really is.
It really is. Yeah, and it was a lifestyle business, and it was fun, but I kind of knew I wanted to do something bigger.
Was there any tech to that business? Were you starting to look at how? I mean, obviously, it was a classic disintermediating a property service by using technology. But did you build a technology stack? Did you start to develop anything in that business?
So we did really early on, and most of that was outsourced to India.
Yeah.
Which was also a big lesson in, you can't just find someone that says they can build tech to build tech.
Let's just pause there for a second.
Yeah.
So you got some Indian outsourcers.
Yes.
Which we've all done it.
Yeah.
What happened?
What happened? I had this vision in my head of what I wanted to create.
Yeah.
I approached some local companies in Sheffield, digital agencies, and you get quotes of 50, 60, 100,000 pounds.
Exactly.
You're like, well, I can't afford that. So I don't know what there was. It wasn't Fiverr, but a website similar to Fiverr at the time. And then you've got people offshore in India saying, I'll do this for like $2,000, $3,000. It's like, brilliant. So $2,000 or $3,000 later, you get something, and you really do get what you pay for. It's like, well, this isn't quite what I expected. And then more money. And we just didn't finish what we started, because we were like, well, and I know now a few £1,000s, probably seems like nothing, but then it was like, well, this is 50% of our revenue.
Yeah. Would you use outsourcers in India now?
I've seen, based on previous business I've been involved in, I've seen it go really well, and I've seen it go really badly. I think it works really well if you know how to manage those outsourcers, but you need somebody that is experienced and knows how to do that, based on what I've seen. But I've probably seen it go wrong as many times as it goes right. So, I think it's 50-50.
Yeah, it's interesting, those lessons, isn't it? Because I agree. Sometimes if you go onshore, it can be really expensive, and for a fledgling company, you just can't afford it. So you kind of have to do that. But I think you're right. You can't just do a couple of emails and expect somebody to build something. You have to be on it every day with detailed product specifications and all of that stuff. And like you, I've seen it go both ways. I've seen it go incredible. I've had incredible successes, and I've also had absolute disasters when I've been doing that. So it became Fit Property. You had 10 employees, and then you sold it. And what did you then do? Did you take a rest? Did you take some time off, or we were already planning the next journey?
Good question. Well, so none of this was particularly linear. So sold Fit Property, but 10 years before I sold Fit Property, I started to split the bills. So Split the Bills was born out of Fit Property, essentially, in that Fit Property was looking after student properties, the students that lived in those properties. One of the things that was always a problem was they'd fall out over the bills. So we started doing bills included. So the landlords we'd pay the landlords the rent, we'd pay the bill element, and keep the difference as our profit. This was purely within Fit Property at this time. And then I don't know how the conversation came about, but I remember having a conversation one day in our office, and I said, we could do this for any property. Like, we don't have to manage it.
Yeah.
We'll just take the amount off each tenant and pay the bills, and we'll make a profit out of it. So we just stuck a sandwich board. I wish I'd got a picture of this sandwich board, but I've spent hours looking for this sandwich board. And we stuck a sandwich board outside our office, which was right outside Hallam University at the time. Just saying, student, we'll pay your bills, any property, come in and see us. And within about, an hour of us putting that board out, we had somebody come into the office saying, what's all this about? And I remember Sophie rang me at the time because I wasn't in the office. She said, I've got some students here. They want to know what this is all about. What do I tell them? Like, I don't know. And I can't remember what I said, but anyway, they came back, I think, and we had a conversation. And our approach to it at the time was, give us your address. We got a spreadsheet that calculated like how much each tenant was going to pay us each week or each month. we didn't really have any way of taking the money off them because we didn't have a card machine or anything for this new business that we hadn't even created. So I remember we got a whiteboard, we got the addresses, we got gas, electric, water, broadband, TV license, and every time a bill came in, we'd just tick it off that we paid it.
Yeah.
We got all the tenants on this whiteboard, and every time that they owed us money, we'd tick it off that they'd paid it. And these people just come in and paying us cash. Like, it was proper made up as we were going along. Like, we really didn't know what we were doing. But in the first year, we got about 10 properties signed up on the platform, which actually at the time was called Fit Utilities. And then it was a friend of mine that said, we should call it Split the Bills. So called it Split the Bills, got splitthebills.co.uk, launched the website. And it was when we launched the website and launched Split the Bills that it just rocketed. Like, I think actually there was another company doing something very similar, but it was just us and this other company. Very new concept. We were getting more inquiries, I would say, because we didn't have this digital sign up, but we were getting more inquiries than we could possibly handle. It was incredibly good business for cash flow because you would take money in advance off our customers, off the students.
Yeah.
The bills would land sometimes months, quarters. Like, utility providers, especially then, were just not on top of anything. Like, you could go a good 6 months without paying a single bill. Fantastic for cash flow, absolute disaster when the bills landed and you were...
Yeah, I can imagine.
So we grew that business, loads of revenue, loads of staff, lost control of the finances, like, big time. Got landed with a massive energy bill from npower.
Oof.
We expected it to be about 500,000. I think it came in about 1.2 million.
Jeez.
We didn't have the money to pay it. And it all happened, like, really quickly. We went from being, I guess, what we thought was a really successful business. I think we had about 20 people working for us at the time. We were probably turning over 2, maybe 3 million. npower sent us this bill. When I say we, it was like, I rang them and I said, well, I think there's probably something wrong here. And there genuinely was. Like, this was the time when meter readings were just, a nightmare. It was, everybody got cut out by it. But we were the small guy, they were the big guy, and within about 2 weeks they slapped us with a winding up petition, and that was kind of the end. Or the end of version 1, shall we say? So
let's just go back a little bit.
Sorry, I'm
no. It's a wonderful story. So how did the business model work? So were you buying chunks of electricity and gas from providers and then reselling it essentially? How did it actually work?
So yeah, what was the model?
Version 1.
The model version 1 was, we take a fixed amount off. So 5 tenants, for example, might live in a house.
Yeah.
We take a fixed amount of them off them each month. That would cover the gas, electric, water, broadband, TV license.
And that was based on an estimate, was it? You just said, for this house, the electricity cost or gas cost is going to be this, and that's what we're going to charge them, plus a little bit of margin, probably.
Yeah. So yes, exactly. It was based on an estimate. The model at the time was, we'll charge them £1, or it might be 99p at the time, so maybe 99p a week to manage the utilities for them. So that was essentially our, I guess, license fee. That was our service fee. The rest of the money sat in a slush fund, if you like. So the idea, or what should have happened, was we collect that money, we pay the utilities, we give them back the balance at the end. It was really difficult to manage because the minute that you got to the end of a year, all our customers wanted to know where they stood. Did they owe us more money because that was the deal? Should they have had a refund? But trying to get all these utilities to reconcile at a period in time when sometimes they wanted to bill you, 3 seconds later, was a nightmare. And that's kind of where it all came crashing down, really. And I think massive lesson learned there was we just did not have the financial controls in place for a business that was so heavily dependent on needing financial controls.
On cash flow, yeah. I mean, it's... I mean, what's really interesting. There are two really interesting elements to that, to V1, and I can't wait for V2 actually. But I remember a company that I started. What we used to do is we didn't have the product, so we would, and I can barely believe I'm admitting this now, but this is back in the 90s, so you know. So what we did is we produced a video demo of as though the product was working, and it was a deep tech application integration thing. And then we'd sell it to a customer, and I sold it to Neopost in France. And one of my engineers was there to quote unquote install it, but what he was actually doing was building the product. And the I mean,
fake it till you make it.
Well, yeah, but that is the model, isn't it? Yeah. But then I remember the guy from Neopost, like this American guy actually, phoned me up and said, I think I just looked over the shoulder of the guy that's installing the product. He appears to be building it. And I said, I've got a level with you. He is. And he said, that's really cool. So you've got some balls, man. And it ended up being fun. But that's kind of what you did, isn't it? You just put the sandwich board outside, said, we've got this product, waited to see if people come in and do it. And I know you've said this in the past, but people wait too long, don't they, without launching something? You don't know. I mean, you've got to get it out there and get people buying it.
Absolutely. And now, in some ways, it's harder because I feel like you've got to probably have a bit more to show them. But you've got apps like Lovable, right? You could spin up something on Lovable in 10 minutes that would have taken a month.
Exactly.
A few years ago.
So people, I mean, I think there's a big lesson. Just don't wait. Don't, you die trying. Don't die waiting to see if it might work or it might not work. But then being faced with a winding up petition, I've never had that. What the hell was that like?
Well, I'm smiling about it now, and it wasn't funny at all, obviously, because you're kind of faced with this. I don't think I realised the severity of it at the time. I remember.
Did you have a family then?
No,
that's better. That's because I know it's just you, but at least you're not taking other people on that journey with you.
Yes, exactly. And I think if you had, I mean, I wasn't living at home, but I was just renting. So I remember speaking to a friend. Well, he's not a friend. He was a lawyer that we'd use, independent lawyer we'd use, and I remember saying to him, "Well, this is the situation we're in. It's just this one supplier," and this was what was sort of a bit unique about the situation. Or now I understand the situation more. I mean, I didn't really understand it fully at the time, but it's not like we'd ran this business and it was slowly, just losing money, and then we, inevitable came to the end. We thought we were very successful, and we thought we were very profitable, and actually we were profitable. It was just the fact we'd lost control of the amount of money we were collecting off the tenants versus what we were actually paying to the suppliers. There was just a gap. A, we weren't collecting enough, and B, we weren't managing Empower, it was Empower at the time, properly to make sure that we were giving them accurate reads. They were billing us on proper readings. And there was obvious errors in here. We had like a 3 or 4 bed terrace house in Sheffield with a £30,000 gas bill. I don't think you could even consume that much gas if you left it running all year. So we were talking to Empower, and their solution to this was, well, we know some of this is wrong. Why don't you just pay us it, and then that'll get the lawyers off your back, and then we'll tidy it up and we'll give you a refund. I was like, well, that's all right. I don't have £1.2 million to pay you. So we got an insolvency practitioner involved, and I guess long story short, we put the business. So I don't quite know how all the time in this worked, but we managed to put the business into liquidation or insolvency before Empower got involved and wound us up. I guess the best option probably would have been just to call it a day. But I didn't do that. Essentially, when I say we, I bought the business back out of administration.
Yeah, it's like a pre-pack arrangement, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, pre-pack, but we still had to go through the process of marketing it, and there was... I don't understand how this didn't happen, but I'm sure our biggest competitor would have definitely wanted to snap us up.
Yeah.
And they we had to write to them. Remember that we had to write to them and say, like, this has happened, you know, are you interested in, or the administrator had to write to them. And it just got lost in communication, because I think it was about 2 weeks after I'd bought the business back, and I remember I'd borrowed money left, right, and centre to do this. Like, I'd taken cash out on credit cards, put it in the bank. Like, it was absolutely ridiculous how I'd got this money together to buy the business back. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, but at the time it was just like, I have to get this business back because I just believed in it. Anyway, somehow our competitor completely missed the fact that they had this opportunity to buy this book of customers essentially for a song. By the time they'd figured out they'd missed the opportunity, I'd already got the business back, which was brilliant. So lots of lessons learned, got ourselves a good FD. I remember she came in and she was like, oh my God, like, how have you even survived 6 months, let alone, I think, the 6 years we had survived.
Yeah.
But she really got us back in order. You know,
yeah.
we really got a handle on the finances. And that first year, I think we'd gone from obviously absolute car crash to making about £500,000
wow.
profit. So, you know.
Just on that point, it's interesting, isn't it? When you bought back the business, but you've had like the lesson in what the stuff that you needed to fix, and it sounds like a lot of entrepreneurs, you need to go and be entrepreneurial. You need to go out there, go hunting, go and do your thing. But back at base, you need somebody that is looking after and gives you, almost on a day-to-day basis, a realistic view of what the business is and tells you how much you need to charge for things and how much money you can spend and all of that stuff. Is that what it felt like to you?
Absolutely. Like, when it was just before we'd got experts in, because this was so early, like, I was just employing people that I knew. Like, nobody had done this before.
Yeah.
I guess we were a bunch of young 20-year-olds with no experience but a lot of enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And my idea of growing a business was, I guess at that time, almost at all costs, you know, if we have to give people a discount to win them, give them a discount, even if it meant losing money on them. And then you realise you have to employ adults or experts or people that have been there and done it before and listen to them.
Yeah. So what happened then? So you went from zero to making $500,000 in profit. How did the business grow? How long did you have it for? What happened?
You know what? So that was 2016. So when we bought the business out of administration in 2016, had a really successful first year. I then had a great idea to start our own energy company, because I was like, right, how do we stop this happening to us again?
Yeah.
And how do we not become beholden on third-party energy suppliers?
Yeah.
I was like, well, let's start our own energy supply business. Like, how hard can that be? And in fairness, it wasn't actually that difficult to get started. So this was at the time, and I don't know if people remember, but in 2016, there was a new energy supplier popping up probably every month.
Exactly.
There was actually a business out there that was selling energy companies off the shelf. So they'd go and get the Ofgem license, they'd get all the accreditation for you, you'd buy the business and you were essentially ready to go. And in 2016, on paper, it would have been an amazing business. Like, we had a ready-made customer, we had, best part of, 5,000 properties that we were just on supply. Like, we didn't have to go and win any customers. We were setting up an energy company, buying energy at wholesale rate, selling it to split the bills at retail rate, making a nice margin in between. I was like, this is perfect synergy. Then the wholesale market went absolutely bananas and wiped out, I'd probably say, almost every energy company that started in the 5 years previously. There was companies like Bulb, huge business. They were, multi-billion pound business, turning over, I think they'd actually raised money at a billion at the time. But,
Yeah.
And they went, and I was like, Jesus Christ, if they're going, like, where are we on this scale?
Well, the reason that they went pop is because they weren't hedging, were they? So did you have a hedging strategy?
We had a bit hedged, but it was the only way you could really start a business without any capital in the energy space was not to hedge.
Yeah.
Just buy on day ahead.
Yeah.
Because if you were hedging and the market dropped, you had to put up cash as collateral.
Exactly.
It was an impossible business to run if you didn't have oodles of cash.
Yeah.
Anyway, the market turned against us, and it was quite obvious about 3 months before what I'd call doomsday that we were going to hit this doomsday scenario. But that was the worst business to be in, because the only way I can describe it is it's like we knew that we weren't charging our customers enough because the wholesale market had gone up so much. We couldn't increase the price to our customers because the way the energy market's regulated, you can't just increase the prices, you've got to give them notice. You can't stop the electricity being delivered.
No.
It's like vans of goods turning up at warehouse and you saying, I can't afford to pay you, stop delivering them. And they just go, have it anyway. Because electricity is obviously flowing into all the customers' homes.
Yeah.
So these bills were just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And like it was almost exactly a year later from, so we'd gone through the scenario, we split the bills. I remember picking up the phone to the same insolvency practitioner saying, do you want to help me again? And I can't remember what he said, but he said something along the lines of like, you're becoming my best customer. So yeah, it was like 2 failures in 2 years.
But those two businesses were separate. So you got split the bills, very successful, and an energy supplier. So there was no contamination from the energy supplier to, yeah, right.
Yeah, it's very, and there was a moment where we were going to sign, so we had a group structure, we had group, split the bills, and this energy company. And I remember there was a moment where I was going to sign a parent company guarantee for a particular supplier. And I just remember thinking, I don't think this is a good idea. And if I'd have signed that would have been it. All over.
Wow.
And I say this and I'm like, it's lessons learned. Like the business went bust. Like companies went unpaid. Like it's not something to be proud of. But at the same time, like wasn't intentional. Like this was, we set up this business with the full intention this was going to be great. It mostly was the wholesale energy suppliers that didn't get paid, the likes of BP, they'd have been fine with us, not fine, but, nobody's losing the job because we haven't paid them the 100 grand bill, they were, BP were fine. So yeah, closed down the energy company, went back to buying energy from the big six. I just had enough of the business by then. I was like, this is not a business I want to be in. I knew it could be successful, but I'd totally lost the energy to try.
Yeah.
This was split the bills at this point. So I was like, right, this was 2019. I knew I wanted to sell it. So I was like, right, who wants to buy it? First obvious buyer was a company called Glide. They were our big competitor at the time. Gone through the whole process, done a deal, not done a deal, but signed heads of terms, and I remember this. I don't know whether they remember this, but I bumped into some guys I knew. I guess were they friends? Yeah, friends. Some people I knew from Sheffield. They started a business called Uni Homes, also based in Sheffield. At the time, were really a competitor to Split the Bills. Very different model. They'd nailed the model much better than we had. And I bumped into one of them in Tesco, maybe 2 of them in Tesco. And I just don't know what even made me say it, but I said, oh yeah, I've had enough of Split the Bills. I'm selling it to Glide. And they said, oh, well, maybe we should have a conversation. We might be interested. Anyway, long story short, I don't know what about this deal just did. Gut feeling, I just decided, let's tear up these heads of terms with Glides and sell it to Uni Homes. And that was the best deal I think I'd ever done in my life. Like, I can't discuss the details, but Glide didn't go bust, but the whole model, the whole side of the business that was doing what we did essentially fizzled into nothing, and Uni Homes went to the moon.
Yeah. Wow.
Kind of just by a coincidental conversation we had in Tesco.
So you basically you sold the business to them, and you retained some interest. We won't go into the details, and that business ended up doing. And you were part of that. I mean, you obviously split the bills, enhanced their business. It must have. So it's enlightened self-interest. You all benefited from it.
Yeah. I mean, it's still going today. Splitbills.co.uk, it still exists. It's still there.
I've got to say, I know it because when my daughter decided she was going to go to university in Sheffield when we were living in California, she had it, and I thought that is an absolutely brilliant concept, because I remember being a student, and when the bill came, we all used to get pissed off with each other because there's always one who spends all his money. It wasn't me, by the way, that spends all the money at the bloody pub. So then you all end up having to pay for that, and it just takes all that away, doesn't it? It was such a great is such a great concept, and I'm really pleased that it worked out for you. I always think as you were talking then, sometimes in Britain there's almost this embarrassment and this negativity around failure. In the US, it's genuinely seen as a real string to your bow. People think it's a good thing because they know you're not going to do it again, right? And V2 is always better than V1, and you prove that. And actually, just out of interest, if you were to, do you think you'll ever do an energy company again?
Absolutely not. I'd highly recommend nobody touches that.
Why?
Why would I never do an energy company again? Energy specifically, it's just such a hard business to make money out of. Yeah. There's so many. It's complicated, I think, is probably the headline. It's not a simple business.
Ashley, I think we'll leave it there for the first part of this podcast. That's been an absolutely fascinating opening to your early life and early steps into entrepreneurship, and then facing jeopardy, facing insolvency, and we'll find out next time in the next episode how you respond to that and how you built what was a fantastic business in MENA. So that was Ashley Tate, a founder shaped by early responsibility, deep curiosity, and the real world of building companies. Someone who's experienced real tough times, but also high points in entrepreneurship. And we'll find out next time how Ashley takes that failure and turns it into a real strength, and how he built what was to become one of the best Sheffield startups in MENA. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe or follow The Digital Forge on Spotify or Apple Podcasts so you never miss what comes next. Thanks for listening.
What if your aligner system could drive more profit for your dental business? With PureTech Clear Aligners, our AI-powered software delivers instant smile previews. Our custom aligners, proudly made in Sheffield, arrive in just days, not weeks. Patient wait times are reduced with localised labs, and our revolutionary technology offers smoother workflows, higher conversions, and happier patients. Be part of the future of aligner care. Start your pilot today at puretech.ai. PureTech Aligners. Smile brighter, smile sooner.